All right, 10:30 right on the dot. Good morning, everybody, again, and welcome to today's webinar called Using WSIB Safety Check to Maximize Your Safety ROI. My name is Jack Minix. I'm a consulting services manager at Workplace Safety and Prevention Services, and I'll be acting as your host for today's Safety Connection. And then just a note that this session is being recorded. Just going to take control. Here we go, slide 2. Before we get started, please take a moment to complete this short demographic survey. We'll put the link in the notes and in the chat, but it is just a few questions and will assist us to build demographic information about who attends our safety connections. Responses are anonymous and no personal information is collected. Please refer to our function number noted on the slide, 231328, and I'll give you a moment to click on that link or take a picture of the QR code and enter your information. We'll just give a few seconds for everyone to do that. All right, one more chance here before I forward the slide. And again, it's in the chat as well. All right, and now I'd like to take a few moments to guide you through some of our webinar housekeeping. First, computer audio is recommended for this webinar. However, if needed, phone conference is available through the numbers in your email invite. We do recommend that you mute other devices to avoid distractions. We've got the settings on so that your microphone will remain muted throughout the webinar and you will not have the ability to turn your camera on. However, use the chat feature, please, to interact with each other and with the presenters. The Microsoft Teams platform we're using today includes some engagement features shown on this slide. Please use the reaction icons as shown to react during the webinar. If the presenters include a poll in their part, you will see the poll open in the chat and on the screen. Please choose your answer and click submit. And as mentioned, you may send your questions to us anytime during the session through the chat feature. The chat can be accessed by clicking on the speech bubble icon on your screen. And just a reminder, we will have time at the end for questions and answers if you have any additional questions. And I'll be popping in throughout the presentation if I see a question, and I'll take a moment to ask our presenters to address your question. A few notes on accessibility features in Teams. You may wish to turn on live captions in Teams, which will transcribe voice to text. To turn on this feature, please click the More, where the 3 dots are the ellipses button, and select Language and Speech from the menu, and then turn on live captions. You also have the option to view the content of the webinar in full screen mode. The full screen option can be accessed by selecting the ellipses or 3 dots and then selecting full screen from the menu. If you're having any technical difficulties during the presentation, please send us a message in the chat. If you're not able to access the chat, please respond to the email invite you received from Safety Connection and someone will be happy to help you. What are some of our goals for today? Well, we have 4 goals for Safety Connection. First is to learn, share, and discover what is of value to you. Second, to stay in touch and virtually connect with your industry peers. Third, to facilitate an exchange of best practices within your sector or organization. And finally, to provide you with an opportunity to attend this session from your personal workspace. And now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. First, Jennifer McFarlane. Jennifer McFarlane is an advocate for lifelong learning and collaborative innovation in workplace health and safety. With a strong foundation in safety engineering technology, Jennifer brings over 2 decades of multidisciplinary experience across education, service, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors. Her career includes more than a decade of post-secondary teaching, where she inspires future safety leaders with her practical insights and deep industry knowledge. Recognized as the BCRSP 2020 Volunteer of the Year, Jennifer's contributions have shaped national conversations around occupational health and safety. She is known for her ability to translate complex safety data into actionable strategies that drive measurable results. Today, Jennifer serves as a trusted senior health and safety account manager for Workplace Safety and Prevention Services, WSPS, where she influences thousands of Ontario businesses to build safer, healthier, and productive workplaces. Whether guiding strategic safety investments, advancing risk management initiatives, or facilitating transformative change, Jennifer's committed to helping organizations maximize their safety ROI and foster an engaged culture. And now Ian Hunter. Ian Hunter is a manager within the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board's Business and Advanced Analytics, and he's been a key member of the Safety Check and Compass team since the development of the tool began back in 2016. Ian's been with WSIB for 14 years, and he's acted as a subject matter expert on a number of key enterprise projects following his role within the Employer Services Center. Welcome to Ian and to Jennifer. So I'm going to hand it off to Jennifer to begin today's Safety Connection. As mentioned, I'll be monitoring the chat in the background and I'll pop in if needed, but otherwise I'll be back with you for our Q&A period at the end of the presentation. So Jennifer, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jack. Really happy to be here today, not just because Mondays are my favorite day of the week, but I also get to present with Ian Hunter, and Ian Hunter is such an expert in this building this tool. And today we are going to navigate using WSIB Safety Check, but also focusing in on the Safety Compass tool as well. And we're going to take that information and learn how to maximize our return on investment for safety. So we're going to break this down into 3 different modules. First of all, doing that overview of what is WSIB Compass, and then diving into also on what is WSIB Safety Check as well. We're going to then look at how to use the WSIB Compass and Safety Check data to drive those business improvements that we so want to ensure are happening. And it's just such a great time to be doing this here in November as we're starting to maybe look at things that we want to do for 2026 and taking the information. Then afterwards, we're going to have a question and answer period as well, and allow for some space for all of us to have some interaction that way. Looking forward to this and spending the next hour and a half with you and Dave and Ian Hunter as well. So first question, we have a poll in regards to, and I hope that Ian is going to answer this as yes, not only have I used it, I have developed it. So have you used the WSIB Compass or Safety Check tool before? Just to get a really good litmus test here on where we're at. Well, we've got, you know what? So we've got a great response here in regards to, so we've got about 55% of the team here that has actually used it before, but we do have people that are about 20% have not heard of it before, and then others that might not have used it, about 35%. Well, this is great because for this particular Safety Connection, it doesn't matter if you've used it or not. We're all going to learn something, especially with Ian navigating through with us. Ian, I'm going to transfer it over to you, and as we look at the WSIB Compass.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is awesome. I love seeing a mix of different people here, whether I like to be able to to present to people that are experienced using it, people who haven't seen it, people who are brand new. It helps so much in providing and shaping a lot of the feedback that we get. We're always building out on these tools as much as we can to help everybody as much as we can. So it's great to have all that different perspective from different levels of users. So I'll just take a step back here. So again, my name is Ian Hunter. I am a manager at WSIB in our business and advanced analytics. My team has been responsible for building all the tools that we're going to look at today. We've built them from the ground up. These are all custom built tools in order to provide information on health and safety at all levels. So we'll go through in quite detail. We'll go through Compass. I'm going to go through that one last. Compass is a tool specifically for businesses. You log into our online services, you enroll into Compass, and you put your account information in, and you get to see your business's health and safety history and your business alone, all the way down to the lowest level of looking at individual claims. We're also going to take a look at provincial statistics and Safety Check. I'll quickly go through provincial statistics, and then we'll go through Safety Check in a little bit more detail. Provincial statistics is going to be basically our highest level. What does the province look like as a whole? What does a specific class look like? What are different types of injuries that are happening in those specific industries? Then we move over to Safety Check. Safety Check is going to provide high-level health and safety information for every business that's registered within the WSIB or has been registered since 2012. Both provincial statistics and Safety Check, those are publicly available tools. They do not require a login. Anybody can access them. It doesn't matter who they are. So we'll start here from the WSIB main page, and this is what we'll begin with provincial statistics and Safety Check. So from the WSIB main page, we start at here. We can scroll down a little ways. We have how safe is your workplace. This will take us directly into Safety Check. Or from any page on the WSIB site, we have our health and safety statistics. So if we click on that, it basically takes us to a landing page for all health and safety statistics that are available. So we can click here and access provincial statistics. We can click here and access Safety Check. We can access our online services by clicking here. And then we just have a number of links to a number of different pieces of information. Like I said, this is a landing page that sort of has everything available on one page. But you'll see once we go in, so we'll start with provincial statistics. You'll see once we go in, we have a tabbing system up here, so you don't really ever have to go through all of the tabbing system. So when we start with provincial statistics, you see we basically start with an overall summary. So this is overall summary for WSIB as a whole. Before I get into too much detail, you'll see here, this says data as of September 30th. So we typically update this information every month. We're updating it around, I'm going to say the 20 to 25th of the month. We have to follow a certain IT schedule within WSIB in order to do our updates. But it'll typically update around the 25th of the month with data for the prior month. So right now we have data as of the end of September. When we get into the latter half here of November, we'll update with data as of the end of October. So all three tools are like that. They all update every month, and they all update around the same time. So you'll see with our summary here, we just give a high level overview. What does overall 25 look like right now? How many claims have been registered? How many lost time versus no lost time? Some key claim indicators here. So mental stress, occupational disease, traumatic fatalities. So we have all of that information there. And then for the last 2 years roughly now, because we're getting close to the end of 2025, we just have a sort of an overview on what are the leading types of injuries that are happening, what are the benefit costs that have been paid out, and then what are the percentages for people who are off work either 1 year or 2 year post injury. So like I said, this is WSIB as a whole. You see we have some filtering options at the top here. So when I'm looking at WSIB as a whole, or we can change, and when we're looking at a specific class now, we can say, I want to look at, let's say, manufacturing. I can look at all of manufacturing, or I can look at a specific breakdown of any type of manufacturing based on the classification hierarchy that we have. So if we select that, say, class E for manufacturing, we can view those statistics. So now basically everything that we're looking at will now be centered around class E. So I'll just go back for demonstration purposes. I'll just stick with WSIB as a whole. You'll see everything on this dashboard is clickable. It'll take you to the information that makes up what we're seeing here, or you can use the tabbing, the options on the left. So we'll see, we can start with, say, workplaces. So here we can see the number of businesses that WSIB covers per year. We have the covered employment. So how many full-time equivalent workers are within those businesses within the province that we cover? How much insurable earnings have been, does that make up? And then how much premiums have been paid for the entire year? Again, if we filter, we can look at specific industries when we're looking at these as well. We have our claim information. So again, all registered claims. We can look at allowed claims by either lost time or no lost time claims. And then we have injury rates. So again, this is WSIB as a whole when we're looking at injury rates, but it will go down to the class level. So you can see specific injury rates at that class level, should you want to look at that. We have our injury characteristics. So here you can actually interact with some of this information. So right now we default it for 2023 and 2024. So we got 2 full years. Right now it's coming up by, say, part of body. And we're looking at the cost. So here we're looking at the categories for each part of body that is costing the most throughout WSIB. We can change these years. So like I said, we can look at all kinds of different years here. Or we can also change the way that we're driving this graph. So we can look at, let's say, what is the event. And rather than looking at it by cost, we can look at that by count. Once we hit apply, so now we're looking at the event that is occurring the most frequent throughout the province. So again, this is at that higher level, but we can take a look, and when we look at the class, we can see what, let's say, the class that you're in, what is the typical, what does it typically look like at that class if you're in, like I filtered before, manufacturing, what is the industry seeing throughout the province? You can see we have a wealth of information available here on provincial statistics. I won't go into too much detail, but you can see we have information around all of our different types of mental stress claims. We have information on our allowed fatalities, so traumatic fatalities, occupational disease fatalities, as well as COVID-19. We have a breakdown of occupational disease claims. So when we're looking at occupational disease claims, you can see that we're looking at the allowed claims by registration year, and it's just as a whole. But you can also look and, say, filter in on different types of occupational disease claims. So if I wanted to say, okay, what does noise-induced hearing loss look like? I can apply that. Now it's going to isolate how many noise-induced hearing loss claims are occurring versus the rest. You'll also see that we have additional information down here. So what types of occupational disease claims are occurring by category for each year. So what's the percentage of those types that we're seeing year over year? Our durations. So here we're looking again just at if there's a worker that's off work either 1 or 2 year post injury. So obviously these are going to be more severe injuries, but what's the percentage looking at if a worker is off work still, either 1 year or 2 years post injury. We have our benefit payments. So again, a lot like the occupational disease graph here, you can interact with this again. And we can have our look at the total by year, or we can isolate and say, let's look at healthcare. So we can apply that. And now we can say how much is paid out in healthcare per year. When we're looking at this, so we do have information about all lost time and no lost time claims. So if a worker gets injured but they don't lose any time from work, those will also show up in here as well. So you can see that we are isolating the specific benefit type when we're looking at the benefits. But now when we're looking at payments, we can also dive a little deeper. So if I wanted to say select 2024, I can select 2024. And we can see the benefit amounts that have been paid out by specific benefit type and how many claims received those specific benefit types as well.
Ian, it's
Yep.
Jack here. I just have,
Yep.
have a question in the chat.
Yep.
Someone's asking, are there any incident reports available, for example, to see what caused some of these incidents?
What I guess I'd ask for kind of some more information as far as what you mean by incident reports. So if there's, say, a claim registered with us for healthcare only, all the information will be accumulated here. And then when we're looking at the injury characteristics, to say if we had a healthcare claim only, we don't have those specifics on those claims.
Okay.
So when we're looking at this type of information, it's only available for our lost time allowed claims. We are hoping in the future that we are able to add that in as well. Obviously, you can imagine that it's a number of claims, so it's just very difficult. So we're trying to figure out ways to do that, but we're trying to hopefully in the future we'll be able to have that information there.
Okay, thank you.
Ian, I'll just add to that as well. So how these numbers are actually prompted, folks, is that it's actually prompted by a Form 7. So that beginning of the process. And so that's where the information. So when we talk about an incident investigation, WSPS has lots of information on how to do a proper incident investigation and whatnot. All those particular details would not be there. However, that being said, so we're talking right now about non-lost times and lost time injuries and healthcare claims as well. We also can see incident investigations that we could pull from, and that would be in regards to court bulletins that are posted on the ministry's site. So there would be some correlation that we'd have to look at for that.
Sorry, Shauna. So I just took a look at the link that you sent there. So as far as some of that stuff, like Jennifer said, there is some of that information available through the ministry site. On ours, when we're looking at the information publicly, we don't have that low level of information. When you're looking at your specific business, you'll see that in Compass.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as provincial statistics goes, that's sort of everything that's available there. Like I said, it's just high level. When we look at safety check, so we have here we scroll over. So now here we're going to be able to search up a business. and we can search any business and get high level health and safety information that's available. And like I said, anybody can search this up. So if a business has been registered with the WSIB since 2012, they will show up here. They don't have to be active now, as if they were operating and then let's say they closed last year, they'll still show up here. So we would go in, we can search by business, legal name, or trade name. I know sometimes it gets a little difficult because some businesses may only register with us as their numbered company and may not provide us with their operating as. Sometimes it makes it a little tricky. So, I mean, there are certain scenarios when that does happen, but for the most part, everybody does show up and it is fairly simple to search. So when we do a search here, we can search and start to limit based on what kind of activity that a business does, if you wanted to drill down a little bit, as well as the different business sizes. So you can start to see different business sizes when you're doing your search. When we search, so you can see we have everybody comes up when we do a search. We can search the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, like I'll bring that up. So by default, so we don't have an account number search on there. We are working towards it, but with privacy aspects, it's just hard to have the account number in that search. Should something happen and someone be able to get access to the account numbers, we're working on a way to make it work. But right now, it's just by name. So you'll see when we bring up a business here, we have the business information at the top. If a business is enrolled within the Health and Safety Excellence program, their Health and Safety Excellence membership badge will show up on there as well. We have the classifications that they fall under. So if they're whatever classifications they have, it will be displayed here, as well as their business size. We can bring up if there are multiple accounts, we can bring up and click on view account names. It'll bring up a little window that'll show that information there. We have our high level business statistics available. So here we allow to be able to change the view. So if a business is registered with us, but they have, say, multiple accounts within their business, we would show the business as a whole, but then you could also go in and filter on specific accounts. So should you want to look at one specific portion of that business, you would be able to go in and look at and see the health and safety statistics for that one account. So I'll leave it at this level right now. So we identify here the total amount of COVID claims that have occurred within the business. The reason we call this out here is because we always want to identify it so that everybody understands that these claims are included within all the statistics down below. The second piece that we would have is our injury rates. I'm looking WSIB Schedule 2 business. Schedule 2 injury rates are not available because they don't pay premiums. Schedule 2 pays all their claims dollar for dollar. So injury rates don't show up for a Schedule 2 business. Then we have our allowed claims by injury year. So when we look at the allowed claims by injury year, so this gets broken down and by year and then by type of claim. You may see this graph looking differently when you're looking at different businesses, and that's just to protect the privacy of individuals who may have had an injury. So once the claims get lower, you may see that this broken down bar by claim type will turn into just one total claims orange bar. And then should the numbers start to get lower than that, this graph would go away and it would just display a number, say 45 claims have occurred, allowed claims have occurred within 2012 to 2025. And that's just all to protect the privacy of individuals. So you may see this graph show up a little bit differently. Next available is our leading types of lost time injuries. So this is the leading type of lost time injury we display based on that statistical coding that gets put on those claims. It's displayed by default starting at 2012 because that's the data that's available within this tool. But we just also give it the option to be able to set it to 2020, just so we can look at 2020 to 2025 as maybe a little bit more relevant time period because it's a little bit more recent. So we just give that option to be able to toggle between the two. We also have our claims receiving wage loss benefits at 12 months. So how many claims are still receiving or still off work and receiving wage replacement at 12 months post-injury? And then we have our benefit payments. So here we're looking at benefit payments that are paid out by that benefit payment year. So we have an option to look at things differently, and we've added this because of the way that the rate setting works so that people understand how the benefit payments that are paid out work. So if, let's say, I had an injury in 2010, but I'm still receiving healthcare in 2024, that payment will show up right now in the 2024 bucket. But you can also change that. So you can look at the injury illness year, and it'll bucket the life-to-date costs by injury illness year. So now, in my example, that 2010 claim that I had, none of my costs are included in this graph now because my even though those costs are still accumulating, my injury was in 2010 and may not be as relevant to rate setting now as when we're looking at that. So that's why we sort of offered that little bit of the ability to change things in that public view so people can look at it in both ways. So again, this is just high level aggregate information that's available so that we can anybody can go in and look at that sort of health and safety history or that snapshot view of what a business looks like. We also have our ability to click on view profile. So if we click on this, that brings us back to that pop-up window again. I can click on a business name and it's going to give us a profile of that business. So it gives us the total injuries that have occurred each year, as well as what the injury rates are, what the FTE is, the injury year, life-to-date days lost, and all the benefit payments that have been paid out. This just was put out there just to give that snapshot view of what a business looks like, as well as in the bidding process, historically, it's always been asked for a WISR. So a workplace injury summary report has always been historically asked for. But business profile, workplace injury summary report, they're very similar. They're the WISR was has that purpose. The business profile, it can serve the same purpose. So we did put these out there so that if during that bidding process, a hiring party doesn't have to go to every single vendor, they can just download it themselves. Or somebody doesn't have to call in to ask for a WISR or log into their online services to get that. They can just get it publicly available. So that was one of the reasons that we put on here, as well as having just that snapshot view available for anybody. You'll also notice that we have our compare injury statistics. So here we can go in and we can now compare the business that we're looking at with some key and other information. So if I wanted to say, look at it and compare it against a different schedule, so I can compare it against, let's say, Schedule 2, I can add that to my selection. So now I'm going to compare it against Schedule 2. If I wanted to compare it against, let's say, a class, I can compare it against Class G1, and I can add that to my selection. I know it's not 100% relevant. I'm just trying to select some stuff here. But you can also go in and select a different business, and you can select any business that you want and compare those two businesses. So when we can compare those injury statistics, you'll see we have our lost time injury rate comparison. So here you're going to be able to see that comparison of the lost time injury rates. You can also see the leading part of body that's injured. So each one of those will have the leading part of body that's being injured and where they sort of rank, and as well as the claims receiving wage loss benefits at 12 months. So again, high level comparators, but it just allows you to do a little bit of a comparison versus, let's say, a class or competitors.
Yeah, and I'm hanging on every word that you're saying here, Ian, because this piece right here is when we're talking about using these stats. So I just put in the chat, you can also compare it by NAICS code as well. So you could actually compare it when Ian was talking about a class. When we think about a NAICS code, that's the North American Industry Classification System. That's the 6-digit code that every single business in the country in North America is placed in. So you could be comparing it to like industries or even in regards to your own industries as well. One of the other tools that I really like about this comparison piece that you've done such a great job at, Ian, is that I can actually compare it to a specific business as well. So ABC company can actually compare to XYZ company as well. So these have really strong indicators when I'm doing presentations to that senior level leadership in regards to looking at ROI. And we'll talk further about that later on. Thanks so much, Ian, for sharing that out.
No problem. Okay, so that basically covers off everything that's available within Safety Check. The only thing that I will take a look or I will show you here is just our additional resources. So here it's just supplemental information that is available. So you can come over here, and when we're looking at provincial statistics, these will give you downloads of sort of all the information that's made up, that makes up those graphs that we were looking at. Again, we don't get down to a super low level. It's just high level, but it's available for download, so you can take it away. It's in Excel, so you can manipulate it if you want to take a look and isolate certain parts of it. You can download those as well. Under our additional downloads, so here, that profile report that we were looking at for that specific business, you can now download and look at a profile report for any, say, NAICS code. So we can view the profile and it'll give us a summary for that NAICS specifically. So how many injuries occurred over the years? What are the total benefits that have been paid out? What are the injury rates? Just gives you that snapshot of all levels of classification, schedule, class, all the way down to the NAICS. We also have in here our recently registered businesses. So here you can look at businesses that have been registered with WSIB over the last 1, 2, or 3 months. We can download a list of every business that's enrolled in our Health and Safety Excellence program. We can also download businesses by classification. So you can look at and say, I want to get a list of businesses that are covered under a specific NAICS code. You can download that and get that information here as well. And then just a lot of other information. So we have our frequently asked questions, as well as a glossary that has all of the definitions of terms that are available throughout the tool as well. So just a lot of supplementary information that's available here. So you'll be able to go and get a lot of information from there. So now, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to add there, this glossary of information, really, I love the definitions here, and we can actually utilize this in socializing some of these terms with our senior level leadership, with even our supervisors when we're talking about what is a non-lost time and a lost time injuries. And when we're thinking about on the prevention lens and putting that return on investment on things. So just use using some of this glossary even in our own work environments to really socialize what those terms mean.
Perfect. Okay. So that pretty much covers off everything for publicly available tools that we have. Again, it can be used in a number of different manners. You can just go in and you can look at what the industry is looking like. You can look at what a specific competitor is looking like. You can I've heard this in different demos before too. You can look at a business in case your son or daughter is applying to work somewhere and see what their health and safety looks like. So there's obviously just a number of different uses, but again, aggregate high level information. We don't get into too much detail here. When we look to get into detail about your specific business, so we basically start at the WSIB homepage, and we have to log into our online services. So we start here, we go into the login feature, we click on login for businesses. So here you would log in. So you would create a login for yourself. So it's not for your company, it's for yourself. So you go in, you create a login, you put in you put in your information. So you put in your email address, you create that login. It's for you specifically. Once you get logged in, you will see a number of different services available for you. I'll see if I can bring up, I can't really log in because being internal, it doesn't really work because I'm on a VPN, so it doesn't really work, but I will zoom in a bit here. Whoa, it's a little bit too much. So when you log in, you can see all of, so it'll look like this. So this will be their main page that when you log in, and you can see that we have a number of different services available. There's a immense amount of things that you can do with our online services. But as you're going through, you can see there, you can scroll down and you have analyze your rates and past claims costs. So this is where how you access Compass. So you would click on go, and this would, if you haven't enrolled before, it would ask you to enroll now your business. So here's where it becomes business specific. So you would just go in and you would look to put your account number in. If nobody in your business has ever registered for it before, it will ask you some security questions in order to be able to authenticate you. If there's already somebody in your business that has enrolled, you can also request access through that admin person should you already have one. So once you get access to that, you would be brought to the Compass main page for your business. So it would look like this. I will say as a preface before I get into this too deeply, what we're looking at here is a demo environment that we have set up. There is no live data here. You'll notice it says as of July 31st, 2024. This is just an environment that we set up so we can do these demos and show everything that's available. So it may just look a little slightly different just because it's that demo environment. So I just don't want you to be caught off guard when we start to go through some of this information. So like I said, this is the main dashboard. It'll give you sort of a year-to-date overview of what's been occurring within your business. Claims registered year-to-date, claims cost paid out year-to-date, and those key claim indicators again. So mental stress, occupational disease, traumatic fatalities. We have some premium information, so just overview of how much premiums have been paid. And then for the previous 3 years, what are the leading types of claims here? So when we're looking at those lost time allowed claims, what's the leading type of claim? What is the total days lost? What percentage of claims are receiving benefits still? And then how are those return to work plans? So if you have workers that are going through our return to work services, what are their outcomes through the return to work services plans that they're going through. We have injury rate information here. We have a section on how to make your workplace safer. So a lot of information about how to join the health, a link to how to join the Health and Safety Excellence Program, as well as a link to our Health and Safety Responsibilities page. And then we have a bunch of need more links. So here you can view business reports. You can get your workplace injury summary report and a user guide, an FAQ, and also link to external sites as well. Again, you'll notice as I was hovering over here, everything again is clickable. So you can click on anything that's available here and it'll take you to the detailed data that's made up. Or it's also available through our drop-down menus at the top. So I'll start with our claim count information. So here we can just look at overall view of what the claims per year look like. Every graph that we look at in Compass is going to be set up the same way. It's going to have some filtering options on the left, the graph on the right, and detailed data down below. And you can see that it's the detailed data all the way down to the claim level. Because we're logged in and looking at information for your specific account and you've authenticated, we go all the way down to the claim level. So we can change everything that we're looking at. So if we wanted to change and look at, let's say, just lost time claims, I just want to look at allowed claims, I can filter on that and it'll dynamically update. It dynamically updates the graph as well as the detailed data down below. If I want, I can remove some of those. So all of my filters that are applied here, I can just click on that. It'll start deleting them and it'll get me all the way back. So you see, we go back to 2012. So we'll have data, if it's available for your business, if you've been in business that long, the data will go back to 2012. Again, everything is you're able to drill down to the lowest level. So you can also, if you want, click on a specific year. So now I can look at 2022. If I want, I can click on October, and now I can look at by week. What did that look like in October? Again, it's drilling down, updating the graph, as well as the detailed information down below. You'll see right now, here it won't make it, typically doesn't make a big difference, maybe a little bit, but it's being driven by registration date right now. You do have the ability to drive it by accident date. So like I said, it doesn't make a huge difference here. There are typically sometimes, let's say, an injury occurs on December 30th and it gets registered on January 1st or January 2nd. So it would show up in the registration in one year, in the accident in the other year. So we just give that ability to filter and change that view by accident or registration year, just to allow for what you need and what you want to do.
Ian.
Yep.
Ian, often I get this question, and you're showing your screen, and you mentioned it before, the data coming in as of a certain date. So for instance, I did a presentation on for the industry groups in regards to doing some analysis and digging in deeper and using some of the stats that you're showing. And it was the data was as of July 31st. I'm just wondering if you could talk with the folks just about what that date means and how current the information is.
Okay, so yeah, when we're looking at this, like I said, we do update every month. So we will take a look and bring in the way that a claim looks or the way that the information looks as of that date. So we'll use July 31st, 2024 as an example because that's what's on screen. So this would be how all this information looks like right now or as of that date. When we get to refresh for the data as of the next month, so it'll be August 31st, we would say bring in any new claim that's been registered. We would bring in any new payments that have been made in that period of August 1st to August 31st. What we would also do is all the information that's in here would get updated as well. So if we have, let's say, a lost time injury that as of July 31st was showing as pending because it hadn't gone through that adjudicated process yet, when we bring it in as of August 31st, it's maybe allowed. So now it's going to show as allowed because we're always updating with the latest information. If we have a lost time claim that, and typically you will see this when we get further down, but we put that medical coding on all the lost time allowed claims. So let's say when we're looking at a claim that may have recently happened, we may not have all that medical coding in there because there's a delay in getting that information coded and reviewed and coded and into the system. So it may show up 1 month as not coded because we haven't coded it yet. And then when we refresh at the end of August, all that information will be populated. So it'll be, like I said, refreshing, showing the latest information that's available at that time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Ian.
Okay. And the other thing I will mention, I know we're saying right now that we are updating on a monthly basis. So we saw in the public tools. So all three of our tools currently are as of September 30th. And then as we get closer to the end of November, we're going to update as of October 31st. We are currently my team is currently in project mode. We're working on building out the ability to update this data a lot more frequently. So we're hoping that by the end of Q1, the start of Q2 of next year, that this data, all three tools, Provincial Statistics, Safety Check, and Compass, are going to update on a weekly basis. So now we will say, let's take a look every Sunday. We're going to refresh the data so that every Monday you'll get how that information looks as of the week prior. So that's something that we're working on. It's a piece of feedback that we always get that we know the data is not as updated as it could be. So that's what we're working on right now. And I hope to see start end of Q1, start of Q2 that we're going to be able to see, you'll see all these tools refreshing on a weekly basis.
Wow. And you heard it here first on Safety Connections right there. And that means that we have to get together again when that gets released, right? We'll do a refresher.
Sure.
Awesome.
No problem. So you'll notice as we start to go through all of these graphs, so we have all this detailed information down below, but we only display about 7 or 8 values per claim. And that's just for visualization purposes. We couldn't really display much more than that because it starts to get really messy. But we have our download option here. So we can click on download. So you can download the graph the way that it looks right now. So you can get that image and you can download that. Or you can download this detailed data. So when we look at the CSV download for the detailed data, so I'm going to download that. Sorry, it's opening on a different screen. So let me pop it over here. You'll notice when we're looking at each claim number, there's I'm going to say around 35 to 40 different values per claim when we're looking at specific information. So you get a wealth of information here. What are those different types of claims? Is it a mental stress claim? Is it an occupational disease claim? What NAICS code does it fall under? So somebody maybe who's classified under multiple NAICS in their business, each claim shows up under those specific NAICS. And then all the way over to what are the total benefit life to date payments for that one specific claim. So you can get that view there. We've also added some information recently that you don't see here. We've added an indicator whether it's a musculoskeletal claim. We've also added an indicator whether SIEF has been applied to the claim or not as well. So a lot of information available if you download the CSV. It's just that we can't display it all on screen. But you do have access to all of that information. All right, so let me go back here. So that is basically our claims count information. So when we look at our claims cost information, So here we're going to now look at this, and this gets driven by payment. So now you can look at the payments that are being paid out every month. So again, all the information is available. You can download all this information. The reason that I showed the Excel for the other one is because this one's a little bit different. So we drive all this by payment and by benefit payment month and by benefit payment type. So you can see we roll all the information up to 3 buckets. So it's loss of earnings, healthcare, and others. When you get down below, you'll see that others will be broken down into a further level. We just typically roll it up to that others because not everybody has the other bucket, or it's very small, so we just roll it up, but the details are down below. You can change this view to see number of different rows below here. But like I said, all the graphs are set up the same. So you can see that this graph looks exactly the same as the other one did. We can change the way that we're looking at everything. Like I said, this is driven by benefit payment date. So that example that I gave prior when we were looking at safety check, if I had an injury, let's say in 2010, I was still receiving healthcare payments in 2024, it would show up in this 2024 bucket. Again, all the information here goes back to 2012, and all that it's based on that benefit payment date, so when the benefits are paid out. We can change that and we can drive it in a different way. So now we can look at accident date. So this will give us a life to date cost by accident date. So if I had an injury in 2010, my information won't show up here. If I had an injury in 2015, my life to date payments will show under that 2015 bucket. Again, this is just all to help and assist when you're looking at rate setting, what dollar values are going into those periods of rate setting. So you can start to see where that is going and where those benefit costs are being applied. You can see that when we're looking at the way that this is broken down, and the Excel, when you can download the Excel again, the same way we did the last graph, it'll have, again, a number of different columns. All the columns are available. The only difference is when you download this one, you may get multiple line items for one claim because we're going to break it down by payment. So you can see that this one claim here in July of 2024 had an LOE payment, they had a healthcare payment, and they had an other payment, and that was vocational rehab. So each time that there is a payment made, it'll show up as a line item when you download this Excel. So it could result in multiple claims or one claim showing up multiple times. So just so when you're looking at that, you can look and see what that information is. You'll also notice when we're looking at this, the claims are hyperlinked. So now we can actually click on one of these claims and it'll take us to and show us a detailed page about that specific claim. So we have all the information, the accident date, the registration date, total days lost, the total allowed benefit payments, and then what are the injury details around that claim. So if everything was coded, all that information would show up here, as well as the total benefit cost and when they were paid out. Details all available. Okay,
So as we pause there just for a second, I just see this question in the chat. So when we're thinking like the safety check that Ian talked about is public information. Anybody can access that. And then right now, as we're in Compass, this is if you have access, when you have access to your WSIB portal, and you can access the information in Compass. So oftentimes what I find is that maybe somebody that's in a leadership role, even in health and safety, doesn't always have access to this Compass. It might land with your finance department. It may land with your operations department, or maybe even human resource department. So you can ask them for access.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, so when I'll go back to the WSIB main page, right? So you click on login and then login for businesses. So you would log in. You don't have to limit your business. It doesn't get limited. Sorry, this is because I'm connected to VPN, so it's a little bit messed up. But it doesn't limit you to one account or one login per account. You
That's
can
right.
have
Yeah.
multiple logins. You can have person A that's enrolled in Compass. You can have person B that's enrolled to submit your premiums. You can have person C that is enrolled in Compass and premiums. You can have someone in a different person enrolled in Form 7 submission. You can like it doesn't limit you to the number of accounts that you have, or sorry, the number of business logins. It's just you go in and all those different services that were available that I showed there on screen. You can enroll, and many people can
Yeah.
enroll as many as you want.
Awesome. And that's exactly why we're doing the safety connections, right? To get those details and understand how to best utilize it for
Yeah.
our ROI.
And
Awesome.
I'll be honest too. I've heard this at a demo before too. There's no cost for this stuff. All of this is free.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
access all of this online content,
Yeah.
all these logins for free. I had this question come up at one of a previous demo that I've done, asking how much it costs. No, it's absolutely free.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay to be enrolled in any of these services at all.
Ian, do you want to just go back? I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt or anything. I want to make sure
problem.
that yeah, awesome.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so we'll look at on our injury details. So you'll see here, we have all our different information. These are when we were on the dashboard, there was 4 boxes in the injury details portion. So it makes up 4 graphs here. So we start with our leading types of claims. So here on the leading types of claims, you'll notice it looks a lot like the provincial statistics one when we were looking at the roll up there. This gives you the same access, but for your specific business. So now you can look and say, you can change those different time frames, look at specific time frames there. The only difference that you have now, you can still drive it in different ways. You can still view it you can see by default, it's brought up by nature of injury. You can look at part of body, source, event, occupation, all of those. But now you'll see that you have the ability to change this. So rather than being at a category or rolled up view, you can go to the lowest level. So when we look at, we're still sorting this by cost. So it's being looked at by cost. But when we look at it by code level, it's now going to take us down to that lowest level of that specific coding, the CSA coding that is put on those claims. So now you can start to see at the lowest level what those are. It's the same when you look at, say, occupation. So we start at the lowest level. We can say, let's look at count. So now we can say, what are the most frequent occupations that are being injured? And it takes us down to the 4-digit NOC code. We don't get into these details out in the public side because we start to get down to low numbers and it starts to identify people. So we couldn't really do that. So we stayed at the category level. But here you can go down because this is your account, your business. You can go down to that lowest level. Again, it's all available to change the different time frames and change the way that you view in order to get the specific information that you want. All right, and we'll look at days lost. So when we're looking at days lost, so this takes a look at our life-to-date days lost by injury year. Typically, you are hopefully going to see that going down. It is a life-to-date, so obviously older claims may have higher days lost. But you can look at a specific year. So you can actually say, I want to look at 2021, and I can click on that figure for 2021, and it'll take you in and it'll give you a claim by claim breakdown. So where each claim falls. So when that injury occurred, how many days lost it has life to date, And then you can see blue dots are no longer receiving loss of earnings benefits as of this time. Orange dots are receiving loss of earnings benefits still right now. And then we show the average days lost dotted line for all of those claims there. So just giving you that specific different view and different one by one claim so you can take a look at how they fell throughout the average of that year. Again, all the information is down below. So if you wanted to download this information, you can. You can go back, you can select a different year, you can and manipulate and change as well. All right, so our claims receiving wage loss benefits. So these are claims that are still receiving wage loss benefits. Again, so we're looking here, all of this information is now locked, so we don't manipulate any of this graph. This is just giving you a view of, are there any claims from historical years that are still receiving wage loss benefits as of July 31st, 2024? So are there still claims that are receiving, and what are the percentage? You can click on the year and get those specific claims, and just allowing you to be able to drill down in different ways. We have our employed at the end of a return to work plan. So anybody who's going through, had an injury and they're going through our return to work services, let's say maybe getting going through a lengthened time off, they're maybe going through retraining, they're maybe going through different types of rehabilitation through our return to work services. So this looks at what were the outcomes from those return to work plans. So it'll look at everybody who's enrolled in those or who has gone through that and what was that outcome. Right now we're looking at it by accident year, but sometimes these things go on for more than 1 year. So we allow people to look and say, well, what about when they went through return to work services and they actually had those plans closed? In what year did they close? Just giving that different view, depending on what your role is. If you're viewing that in different ways, just allowing you to view it in those different manners. We have a premium section here. I won't go into too much detail because I know it really doesn't impact everybody. So we just summarize basically everything that's available, all your reporting for year to date, the NAICS codes that you're covered under, what your predictability is, your predominant class, your current rate, things like that. All of the historical information that's been reported throughout the years, all of that information's there, so we can look at that. And then we have a link on how you can look to help lower your premium rate. So here we look at our premium rate calculation. So at the top, we summarize your latest rate that you would have. So this would look at your current rate that you're paying, the projected rate that you have for your business. We talk about what projected rate is, where your business is going based on your health and safety, your class's health and safety, things like that. And then we have our 6-year premium rating window. So this would summarize all the claims that were in that 6-year rating window that made up your rate. When we talk about rate setting, rate setting is based on we can see here 4 different things: the class, the predictability, the claims, and it's typically the total cost. But we know that employers don't always have the ability to impact all the costs, but you do have the ability to impact the days lost. And the days lost typically end up resulting in the majority of the costs that make up the costs on your business. So that's why we summarize it and show it as total days lost, because that's where you can have that biggest impact. So we go through here and we just talk high level, sort of how our rates set. And then larger businesses who have more impact or have a higher predictability and have more of their experience put on their experience versus the overall class, will be able to look and change, sort of say, what does it look like if I'm able to? So if we're able to say, what if I'm able to, in the future, lower my number of claims by, let's say, 10%? What does that look like? So we can do that calculation. So the same way that our internal CRM system goes in and looks at your entire history, performs a calculation and does all that information, we replicate that same process out here, but saying, well, if you had a 10% lower history, this is what you would sort of look like as you move towards in the future. So it would look like a your projected rate would look to go down by 10%. You would have roughly 200 less injuries and you'd have 700 fewer days lost. So how can I make that happen? We can look at it in many different ways. So we can go back to our leading types of claims graph where we're starting to look at what are the most frequent injuries? What are our costliest injuries? How can we impact and how can we make changes within our health and safety culture, maybe to look at our costliest or to look at our most frequent to make these changes? We have a link out to our Health and Safety Excellence program. So how can you get enrolled within that Health and Safety Excellence program and be able to not only improve health and safety, but get money back as well. We have a link to our health and safety community webpage where everybody, there's a number of different links here, internal, external, to be able to get in and access a number of pieces of information to be able to help with that. As well as a link to our return to work page. So again, returning people back to work, helping them get back to work sooner, to be able to help with that process. How can you help with that process, and how can that help you lower your days lost, lower your costs? So just a number of different pieces of information there. The one thing I will say, so I'm going to skip over this health and safety for 1 second. I'll look at our need more. So here, again, we have a number of different pieces of information, glossary, FAQ, user guide, all that, links to our partners. You have our view business report. So here you can go in, if you can get specific business reports, you can get those summary profiles like we showed that were available publicly. If you wanted to get them here, you don't have to go publicly to get them. And then we have a number of different reports that are available. And we keep building out on this as much as possible. So we keep building different reports into here. Like I said, we have our workplace injury summary report here, so we can get our workplace injury summary report. So we have all of that information, and it just sort of summarizes this information by business. But you can get all different business reports here. So the reason that I skipped over health and safety, and I'll come back to that now. Like I said, this is a demo environment, so it's not as up to date as I would like it to be. You'll notice when you go into the live system now, or if you log into your own Compass, on health and safety here, it's actually a drop-down tab now. So there's a number of different pieces of information there. So you have your risk profile. So when we're looking at a risk profile, that is what is used when we're looking at setting premium rates. So you can start to look at how your risk profile is looking over the course of the last few years. We also have the ability to look at your injury rates. So you can pull up a graph of your injury rates, but now in here, you can also compare your injury rates as well. So you can look and say, I want to look at my lost time injury rate, and then I want to see my class's injury rate or my NAICS injury rate. And then you can search for a business. So say I want to look for one competitor and see how my lost time injury rate is compared to my closest competitor. You can do that all within Compass now as we look to start adding features like that. That's all available within Compass right now as well. All right. I think that covers everything off.
Amazing. I'm just trying to keep up with the conversation there too, and such great information to share out with folks here. I'm going to take over and just go through a couple of high level, and Ian, stick with me here because you did speak with a couple of resources that WSPS has for the folks as well. And I'm just going to share my screen. hasn't it been amazing, this conversation? So we talked about how to use WSIB Compass. We also talked about the safety check data as well. And I really appreciate you hanging in with us and sticking with us as we covered those fundamentals and did an even deeper dive there in regards to the Compass and the safety check. And I really do appreciate you giving us that information and coming along with us for this journey, because it's really impressive how this tool has been built, how it's been developed over the time since the inception of it. So thanks so much, Ian, for that, and your team. Kudos to you. We can really use this information in regards to our ROI as well. So how many of you think that your senior leaders are aware of their company's WSIB data and their safety performance? So just a quick poll here. Yeah, and we've got folks here, yeah, and it's about a 50-50. Like some people are just not sure there, and some people are aware that this information is out there. And think about how we can actually use this information to really develop key indicators for ourselves and KPIs. One of the pieces that we also talked about was in regards to the health and safety index as well. So this health and safety index has been being promoted through WSIB Compass tool, but also this safety check as well. And it's supposed to be capturing the metrics on basically across different jurisdictions and emphasizing the quality improvement indicators and looking at different categories, just not on the performance of non-lost times and lost time injuries, but also how it's being influenced in our legal framework as well, and other metrics that may have been rejected during the safety check and safety compass. So this health and safety index is being evolved as well. I'm going to actually send a link to a PDF that talks about the development of that safety index, because as we move along, this was done in 2022, and as we move along, we're going to actually over the years see this being utilized more and more, especially in regards to the focus that the HSAs like WSPS are using in regards to their tools. So using that as our own in regards to doing our planning and whatnot. When we think about WSIB Health and Safety Index, it incorporates prevention efforts, like as for example from the ministry, but also from WSPS and other HSAs. And then it also talks about workplace culture. Ooh. And empowerment as well. And then the enforcement data that we have links to as well. And then survey feedback from Ontario workers. So we talked about the safety check and what it is. Again, that's a free online tool that allows every single business, anybody, public, to look at it. I put in actually our chat, like if you're talking with your children about starting work or whatnot, safety check is a great avenue for us to use to have conversations about the best job to apply for. We've given you the link for the safety check and why all of this matters. So all these stats and whatnot that we're looking at really matter because it helps us identify areas for improvement. It supports our safety procurement, and also it helps us support our contractor selection. So if I'm looking at hiring a contractor, that I could actually look at the safety check for contractors as well. It strengthens our business case for health and safety investments over the years, and it also encourages really transparency and data-informed dialogue on health and safety. Remember, Ian actually referred to that glossary of terms, and that's, I'm thinking, you know, when we're having conversations with senior level management, and introducing those terms as well and making sure that we've got really good transparency to promote a good, healthy safety culture at our facilities. So we've learned how to use the WSIB safety check and the data. Now let's just dig in a little bit deeper in regards to some of the things that I've seen and we've used on a day-to-day basis in regards to doing business cases. So when we think about the business case, we're thinking about reducing costs and liability. We're thinking about improving employee productivity, and that moral, that health and safety, good health and safety culture. And we also want to make sure that we're enhancing our brand and our reputation as well. And I know that I'm singing to the choir here. Again, we've got those 3 reasons for health and safety, but putting some numbers to it, as you could see, that you could see the dollars amounts and the non-lost time injuries and lost time injuries when we think about frequency and severities. I also want to point out another resource for us from our friends at Workplace Institute for Work and Health. They did actually return on investment that I'll share out the article with you. And they talked about like every dollar being spent on occupational health and safety in regards to employers and what they saw on that average return on investment. So if you're in manufacturing, like so many of you are, the return on investment is basically 24%. If you're in construction, that's even higher. It's at 34%. And in transportation, wow, we've got a whopping 114% of return on investment. These returns were calculated by comparing occupational health and safety expenditures to the financial benefits, and benefits included both tangible costs like medical expenses and intangible costs like lost productivity as well. A great article, and I'll be sharing that article out with everybody as well, so you can look at all the work that the Institute for Work and Health has shared with us. So in the last couple of minutes here, I'm going to do a really high level, taking the information that Ian talked about and you're thinking about just justifying and doing that return on investment in regards to justifying capital investments. So if your data was showing a recurring pattern of manual material handling injuries, then you could take that data, put it to some costs to it, and use the trend to justify investing maybe in a lift assist or maybe even a conveyor system. And then showing the return on investment to reduce lost time injuries, improve worker productivity, and then lowering your insurance costs. This is just one example of using the data that's currently, so we're thinking about reactive data that Ian was showing, turning it into a more proactive approach, and then using that data to put together that return on investment. Let's take a look at another one. Think about strengthening your business case for training. So you know how Ian was showing us the types of injury types and the breakdown, and you can, if you look at that and you say, okay, we've got slips, trips, and falls here, and it's at a very high rank, then you can use that as part of your action plan to basically target refresher training and walk through hazard assessments. And again, your return on investment for that would be fewer claims, reduced disruption to the business, and higher employee engagement as well. Are we liking these examples? They're really realistic. right? They don't have to be big pieces. They can be really small. I love this one, and I've used it quite often when I'm thinking about building out a contractor's program, right? When we think about vendor and contractor risk screening, before onboarding a subcontractor, you review their history on safety check. You use the red flags, such as trend in increasing injury rates, to inform procurement decisions and request for a safety improvement plan. This could even be actually even with a current vendor that you're using as well. So you want to make sure that you're looking at your ROI impact, reducing reputation risk, stronger project continuum, and also sharing your safety culture, your good health and safety culture, with those that are contractors or vendors for you. Okay, I've got two more. One is benchmarking across your locations and your competitors. And again, I use this on a daily basis. In fact, I'm going to go out this afternoon. We're going to have this discussion, because if I have industries that are like my industries and they're having certain types of injuries happen that I can do a comparison on, I'm going to take those and I'm going to be proactive and address those types of hazards before they enter my workplace. So if you operate multiple work sites, or you want to see how you measure up against your peers in your sector, do a safety check. Do that comparison that Ian showed us how to do in regards to lost time injuries between your facilities against the industry benchmarks as well. And then our return on investment for this is really focusing improvement efforts where they have the highest impact. Okay, ready for our last one? I love this. Strategic planning is where it's at. When we think about our leadership teams, and you're thinking about they want to actually cut costs, let's be on the proactive side of that in regards to safety investments, instead of always being on the reactive side. So leadership teams needs to cut costs, but you want to shield your health and safety investments. So using the compass or safety tool, trends to show risk areas, identify those risk areas. If left unaddressed, they could lead to even greater financial loss over time. So a good idea is to get ahead of that. Safer decisions backed by data, not guesswork, but protecting your people and your profits as well. So I have a call to action for everybody on the call here, is to basically get involved with WSIB Health and Safety Excellence Program. Ian showed in his demonstration that you could see on the safety check who was actually involved in this program. It's a rebate program that gives you great resources, good support, and also gives you money back to reinvest in your health and safety program. We also want to take a look at that Institute for Work and Health and how to boost your ROI. And I'm going to share those resources after our session today. Another thing that I really want to share out with the team is that we at WSPS are being proactive and looking at industries that having high risks, and we call it the risk assessment and root cause analysis. I'm going to share out those resources with you. Currently, we are doing work in food manufacturing, food and beverage wholesale distribution, automotive manufacturing, the grocery store, and the vehicle service and repair sector. And what we're basically doing is doing for the industry, focused on industry and industry driven. The purpose of the risk assessment and root cause analysis project is to support those high risk sectors in preventing injury and illnesses from happening and identifying hazards of workers that are exposed to, and developing solutions to mitigate those risks. And that's what we're all about here at WSPS, on that preventative end. I hope that you have found this, I'm just going to put that in the chat for everybody there. I hope that you have found this really valuable, and really appreciate Ian coming and sharing his ideas, and also the tool that is always evolving, isn't it, Ian? You've just done a tremendous job of building that tool out. And really, in today's economically challenging environments, we need to be really savvy on how to use the Compass tool and Safety Check as well. I know that every business is seeking every possible advantage to stay competitive, stay resilient. And one of the very most powerful underutilized tools, I think, is in regards to occupational health and safety performance. And so during this talk, we really did explore those avenues for building those business cases using the data that's already presented to us.
That's great, Jennifer. You did a great job wrapping that up. Thank you everyone for sticking with us, and for that, Ian, thank you for the great overview. Jennifer, I like how you wrap things up and gave our participants some great direction on how to use that information to improve their business. We're a little bit short of time, but if anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to take those questions now. This session again was recorded, and we will be following up with all participants by email with some links to these resources that Jennifer had put in the chat. I'm not seeing any questions right now. So I'd like to thank Ian Hunter from WSIB for his presentation today, and Jennifer from WSPS. Thank you both for your informative presentation. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.